David Owings, Associate Dean of Libraries and Head of Archives and Special Collections at Columbus State University, is our next speaker. David holds degrees in history from Columbus State and Auburn, as well as a master's in information science from Valdosta State. In addition to his work at CSU, he's an active leader in the archives field, serving on state and national boards, including the Society of American Archivists Archival Facilities Guidelines Committee. He's also a published author with works on American cartography and Columbus history, and is currently co-authoring new national guidelines for archival facilities. Everyone, please help me in welcoming David Owing to the Georgia Archives.
Thank y'all. I'm excited to be here. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. So I am here from Columbus, and I want to talk to you a little bit today about a case study I did to track down the mysterious W.F. Gann. And as part of the genealogy workshop today, essentially what I did was build a biography for him. Now, I did use resources within the Columbus State Archives, but most of what I used is not unique to Columbus. You can find these types of resources at most every archive, and a lot of it is online these days too. So even though the case that I'm going to be walking you through today was utilizing the resources at CSU, it's my hope that you can take this and be able to translate the steps easily to your own work at home. So like I said, the story I'm going to be telling you today is on the mysterious W.F. Gann. Who was he? Was he a doctor, a pharmacist, a political activist, or was he just an alcoholic? And this all started one day in the archives, one of our routine normal days, pulling collections for researchers. And when I pulled a box, I was thumbing through it, and I found this newspaper clipping, Prohibition Discussed by a Columbus Doctor. And I won't read all of it to you. You can read some of it, but essentially, this Columbus doctor is arguing against prohibition. And the passage that I really like here is this one here. It says, I defy any physician to prove that whiskey does not have a good effect with the poor, weak, emaciated consumptives. It mitigates the cough, cheers up the feelings, and softens the path to the grave. So upon reading this, I said, who is this guy? I need to know everything about him. And on my genealogy hunt, this is all I had to go off of. I had initials. I had a date. This was published in 1925, so I know that's when he lived. And I have an address here. So what was the first thing I did? Some of you are probably familiar with this. I went to the city directories. If you're not familiar with city directories, they are a wonderful resource. They're one of the best starting points to help piece those puzzles together for building a picture of your ancestors or whoever it is you're researching. City directories are similar to telephone books, except they tell you so much more than just phone numbers and addresses. This is a business listing under the drugs section. And you can see from the red star, I found a WMF. You remember on that last slide, all we had was W. So we already have a new piece of information. We now know his first name is probably William. That address matches the address we saw on the last slide. There's a second line underneath it that says Gann's Pharmacy. So it looks like perhaps he's a pharmacist rather than a medical doctor.
Same address too.
This is, I should point out, 1921. That newspaper clipping you saw a second ago was 1925. This was the business retail listings. This is the personal listings. I found WMF. And in parentheses, we now have another piece of the puzzle. We now know he's married to Lula, and we have his occupation listed there, physicians and drugs. But you remember I titled this mystery. There's a new piece of information down here. Gann's Pharmacy, operated by Taylor Gann, is the proprietor, and H.C. Gann is the manager. So you've got William F., you've got Taylor, and you've got H.C. So how are all of these people connected? They must be, right? That's not a coincidence. And while I was in the city directories, it's funny how nowadays we hate advertisements. But when they're historical, they're kind of cool, right? So these are scans I took of Gann's Pharmacy, and I think they're really interesting. They called it a sick room store. So, like I said, we've got a couple of puzzle pieces we've built together, but there's a couple of new pieces of information we need to track down, like Henry and Taylor Gann. So what I did next was go to the U.S. Census. I pulled this from Ancestry.com. This is the 1920 census. You remember that first date we had was 25. Then we found him in the 1921 city directory. This is the 1920 U.S. Census. There's a zoom in for you so you can see it better. We did confirm that his first name is William. There's his wife, Lula. He has a niece living with him as well. And this helps us with a couple of more information. It gives us his age. And so from that, we can deduct what year he was born. It does tell us his race, his gender. He's a white male. And interesting, it calls him a medical doctor here instead of a pharmacist. So we've got conflicting information now. How many of you have ever had conflicting information all the time, right? So we've got to figure out what's true and what's not. The next thing I did is, and I did further U.S. Census research, I should say. I didn't take scans or screenshots of everything. I'm just kind of summarizing here Gann's story specifically. I did go further back in time and get his parents, for example. I don't have pictures of that, but I'll show you that on the very last slide. This is the Sanborn map, though. How many of you are familiar with the Sanborn maps? A couple of you. For those who aren't, they're one of my all-time favorite things. The Sanborn maps were made for the purposes of assessing your risk for fire insurance. And since they needed to know that, they capture all this wonderful information. They tell you what the building is, what the building is made out of, tells you where all the water lines are, what the outbuildings are. For example, yellow is a wood building, pink is brick, blue is concrete. And the reason they did that is because if you lived in a brick building down by the river or next to a large source of water, your risks for fire insurance were fairly low. But if you lived in a wooden building next to a nitroglycerin factory, then you're going to have much higher fire insurance rates. So this is 1895. This is the, I believe, I don't have it in my notes with me. I think this is the 2900 Second Avenue location. And I'm sorry you can't see it, but this says drugs, so this is a drugstore. That was 1895. Here it is in 1924. And this is another thing I really like about the Sanborn maps is as you go through them, they do such an amazing job showing you the evolution of the city block. And through that, we can kind of speculate and build a picture of what people's everyday lives were like. Whose houses did they walk by on their way to work? Who did they wave good morning to? Where did they go to buy groceries? What was that community like that they lived in? For example, there's a Methodist tabernacle here on the other side of the block. But going back to the drugstore specifically, you can see it's now pink. Something has happened, maybe a fire, it's been rebuilt. And I'm sorry if you can't see it, but I absolutely love this. Behind it, it says ice cream factory. And I do have two side by sides. Again, I'm sorry they're not bigger, but just to give you that comparison between 1895 and 1924. So you remember there were two addresses listed. This is the other one. This is the drugstore, and this is the residence. This is where he would have lived. It's the pink building. It's the one circled in red down here in the bottom. And again, thinking about what his average day been like. I didn't do this, but if this was your ancestor, you could pull up the U.S. Census for each and every one of these houses and find out who lived there, what was their profession, people he would have interacted with on a daily basis. And right across from him, there's a Christ Church. Christian Church, excuse me. This is 1924. I thought I must only have one picture of that. So the next thing I did is Columbus State has access to Newsbank. And Newsbank is wonderful. Newspapers.com is another really good one. And it's so easy to use. All I did was keyword search his name, and I actually got a lot of really good results. These are not that great of scans, so I'll do my best to read them to you. The one on the left says, Dr. W.F. Gann, one of Columbus's most prominent and successful physicians. So that tells us he's physician, not pharmacist, has just returned home after several days' visit to his brother and relatives in this place. Dr. Bill, on being asked in regard to the health of his city, he said it was distressingly healthy. I think that's so funny. The one on the right says on Thursday night, the store of Dr. W.F. Gann, 2900 2nd Avenue, was entered and a number of small articles were taken. It is believed that the robbers who visited the store on Thursday night are the same who robbed these other stores on Friday night. So he was involved in a robbery. I think that's interesting. Even though he was robbed, he wasn't the robber, but he got in trouble himself. A local druggist faced U.S. charges for violation of the Harrison narcotic law. It says he was prescribing in too large of quantities the drug paregoric. And so he wasn't supposed to do that. The one here on the right is actually about Henry Gann. And I love this one because you remember the ice cream factory came up behind the drugstore. Well, it turns out in addition to ice cream, Gann's pharmacy was actually quite a pioneer. It says here that Gann's pharmacy becomes a pioneer in the introduction of a soda fountain novelty in Columbus. A few days ago, Mr. Henry Gann completed the installation of a new fountain that will operate without ice. So it was the first refrigerated soda fountain in Columbus that didn't need ice to keep it cool. And on my hunt for through the newspapers, I found one of the holy grails for genealogy research, and that is the obituary, which gives us a whole bunch of details about Dr. Gann's life. I won't read it all word for word for you, but it confirms a lot of what I'm going to show you in the next slide. It gives you a little bit about his life and how he lived. I'll leave that on the screen just for a second in case you want to read it.
When you showed the Sanborn map, that meant it had been rebuilt or something, or that there'd been a claim?
That means it was built in brick.
Oh, built in brick, but it wasn't initially. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you ever find what happened to it?
I did not, no.
Okay, yeah, I was looking too.
So in summary here, this is what I found out through my research steps. Again, remember all we had to go off of was W.F. Gann in the year 1925. But this is the picture I built of his life. His full name is William Frederick Gann. He was born in 1857 in Alabama. He was white. He was educated. He was a physician / medical doctor. He was 68 in 1925 when he wrote that editorial about whiskey and how good it was for you. He held an office at 2900 2nd Avenue, but he lived at 2705 2nd Avenue. His father and mother were born in Alabama. His father was Archibald Gann, who lived from 1817 to 1864. And his mother was Mary Ann Duncan, who lived from 1818 to 1874. He was married to Mary Lorena, known as Lula Mary Mack. I was able to get her full name. And it was his brother who owned the drugstore. His brother was Zachariah Taylor Gann, who lived from 1846 to 1930. And it was Taylor Gann's son, Henry Gann, who actually managed the pharmacy. So that's actually quite a lot I was able to find from, and that's not even mentioning the soda fountain or the robbery or the paregoric violation. But I think I do have to say, as far as the mystery goes, I think it's interesting, funny perhaps, that they had this little cabal going. You go to the doctor, oh yes, you need this, this, and this, and then he sends you across the street to his son to buy it. So that is the mystery of W.F. Gann. I think we have time for questions if anybody has any. Do we have some experienced genealogists here already? Is this similar to the steps you would go through?
Yes.
Who were the other Ganns that were on the city directory? There were a couple others that were in one of the city directories. Were they all related?
I think this is all of them. We have W.F. and Lula, and then we have Taylor Gann and Henry Gann. I can go. I think I found everyone that was on the. Yeah, W.F., Taylor, and
So there's an Alice.
H.C.
Bud and Mary.
Oh, I did not track them down. There's Lula, there's Taylor,
See, there's Henry. He's related to the pharmacy.
there's Henry. That would be H.C. down here. I didn't look up Alice and Bud, but I bet they are related. They've got to be.
Same address.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alice is possibly their daughter, because it's the same address, or their niece, because they had their niece living with, yeah,
What's a niece here?
Lula.
It looks like Lula Lord.
Yeah, she has a different last name.
She wouldn't have been there under Gann. You're right. She's got a different last name.
But the daughter's not listed on the 1920 census and is listed here, though, as living in the same house.
Right.
And this is 21. But you don't know when this information was collected.
I don't know. Yeah.
She guys got married and then.
No, the Sanborn maps.
No, I think this is the. This would be the wife at 2705. Is there another one?
Yeah, Alice.
Alice. Okay.
It's the same place.
Was it the same place? It doesn't look like an Alice to me, and this was 1920.
Right, but if they had a child, I mean, she could have lived there before and they just didn't update the city directory.
Yeah. She may have, yeah, I don't know. This is 1921 and this is 1920. The mystery continues. I'm glad y'all are getting into it though. Maybe y'all want to help me track this down.
Children.
Does it say on that census how many children they had?
No, you
Yeah.
gotta go 1910 for that one.
Yeah.
Lula Lord's daughter, baby.
Because she's.
Well, no, she's only 7.
No, she's
No.
34, but she's
Oh, 34.
widows.
She's female.
Oh, yeah, so she's feeding, oh, I see, yeah, 20, yeah.
It does say she's widowed. I don't know that I've noticed that.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Just both of them is widowed. No.
No.
I'm sorry, yeah. This is the wrong thing altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Might be church.
mentioned before at the beginning, but how did you kind of get onto this track again?
So I'll go back to it because it's just such a great, I call it editorial, newspaper column, whatever it is. I was in a box pulling a item for another researcher, and it was our A.C. Smith collection, I'm pretty sure. And this wasn't requested, but I was thumbing through it looking for the other folder, and I said, "What is this?" It was just completely accidental.
Yeah.
It does. It is really interesting. I mean, as far as thinking about who he was for a person, I only read that one section to you. But he talks about religion there, and he, makes justification that Christ actually, he makes the water into wine justification. And then on I believe it's right here, he talks about the police, how they will look the other way, depending on how they feel about the law, and how there's this element of corruption too. There's the New Testament, he works that in.
The genealogy.
Yes.
Rabbit.
It is, yeah, in the back.
Well, easy to follow.
Been reared in a small, dry county many years ago. I am actually suspect about what was really going on in that ice cream shop.
That's a good point, yeah.
I'm thinking that that he could have been laying the groundwork for if he got caught with the bootleg.
That's actually really smart, and I wouldn't have be incredibly hard to prove, but I wouldn't be surprised even a little bit.
It fits a scheme
It does, doesn't it?
that I've seen before. And 2 other kind of sideways things that really don't have anything to do with your research there, except that it tickled the memory. I'm old enough to remember when I babysat younger cousins that there was available paregoric in the medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
To daub on
The gums.
gums.
I had a lot of that as a child. They explained mine around addictions.
And the other thing is that my granddaddy, being who he was and how he was, when I would get sick as a young child, I'm sure that there's other people in the room are old enough to remember that, whether it happened to you or not, where the medication was a little bit of white lightning.
Yeah.
A little bit of white lightning with some either honey or brown sugar.
Yeah. Hot toddy.
Yeah, and well, and the thing about it is if the adults at least got some rest from the sick child.
There is some truth to it. Whenever I get a head cold, I still occasionally will make a hot toddy. They work.
I think it's very common though for the doctors to operate out of the pharmacies.
Yeah.
Because in Roswell, we had that, I know. And they weren't related.
I think it is very common, especially during this time period in the 20s.
Yeah.
But I still think it's kind of cabalish.
So say, going back to the ice cream theory, I think that's the whole thing. Like he would just send folks to his brother.
Yeah.
Is this a letter to the editor type thing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonder what the responses were. The next week edition.
His prescription pad must have said hot toddies.
Probably did. It probably did. Yeah.
Not related to that, but it reminds me, a few years ago, I was passing a kidney stone. And I went to the doctor and I was very sick. I went to the doctor and he told me, he was like, listen, he said, this is what we're gonna do for you. But he said, off the record, he said, you can drink beer and beer is supposed to, whatever it does, like he explained it to me. Have you heard that before?
Yes,
And I was like,
yeah, because
are you serious? And he,
it's kind of like a diuretic. It helps you pass things through him.
and he said, but that's just, and I was like, I would have tried it if I had not been so sick. I was so sick. It's like, I couldn't drink a beer, I would die. But yeah, a doctor told me that.
What was the medication that you got in trouble for?
Paramore.
It's a narcotic,
And
but it's a liquid. Well, it came in a liquid.
Yes.
I can have experience with it. And they would dab it and rub it on a baby's gums when they were teething, but I'm sure they took swigs of it too. My dad was a pharmacist, my grandfather was a pharmacist, so we had a house full of stuff like that.
So they probably got wind of that, and that's what led to the charges for the paregoric.
It could have been, yeah. Let's see, what was the date on the paregoric?
20,
It was
20.
1922. Well, this would have been a couple of years before that article, but.
So he's like writing saying, hey, things are bad.
Yeah.
Describe a lot of it.
I was because I have not done genealogical research. I was unfamiliar with those maps that the houses. Could you explain like how often would they get updated when the census was done, or what would have caused that to be updated?
So that is a very good question. Let's see if I can find. This one kind of shows it. They're in these really big atlas books. They're big. And since they were so big, they were very expensive to make. And so the company did not make one every year. At least for Columbus, I assume it's true for other communities. We have one in the 1920s, and the next one they published wasn't until 1955.
Okay.
And the way they handled updates, you can maybe see here, is if something changed, they would send out updates to the subscribers and they would have to glue it in.
And you can find them all on the Library of Congress's website. And you can search by state, then city or county.
And I think UGA has some online.
Now, this is
Nothing compares to being able to flip those pages in person, though.
It's random what's out there.
Yeah.
You just have to go look. And the Library of Congress I found has the best search there, just homepage, just search only on, filtered on maps.
and this is for every community?
No, like I said, it varies and it had to do with insurance.
Right, sure.
It had to be a big enough town
Yep.
for it to be worthwhile.
They wouldn't necessarily do the whole town. They would focus on the business community. And so for Columbus, you have a pretty good capture of downtown. And they go pretty far out, but once you get past a certain street, it stops. Even though there would have been communities
Yeah.
living well past that.
And they may change from year to year what the range was.
Yep.
Say,
Does the Georgia Archives have any?
I was about to say, we do actually have the Atlanta area and possibly beyond that. But they are almost all of them digitized and available.
But they're hard to use though, in my opinion, the online ones.
They're a little awkward because they wanted it to fit on one piece of paper. They'll do one section of the town here, and then the next section over here is a separate
Yep.
section of the town. It's not necessarily what's west of this. It's kind of So you have to be careful to look at, and sometimes the road names change, so you can't necessarily say it's the same road as what you're familiar with today.
I don't have a good picture that shows it to you, but what's really nice about the print copies is, let's use this as an example, 29th Street, let's say that's the end of the page. It'll give you the page number right below it to flip to. So if you say, well, I want to know who lives right next to here, it would say 29th Street continued on page. And you instead of trying to find the next scanned image, which can be cumbersome, you know exactly where to go.
I have a question for the Georgia Archives. Are all of your maps scanned and online? No.
I mean, we have 100,000 maps.
Okay.
So for the most part, for the maps, there's on a virtual vault, there's a section called ad hoc,
Mhm.
which is basically exactly what you think it is. It's like just randomly when people ask for them, if they were popular requests or anything like that.
Is there a directory online of what you do have, even if they're not scanned?
Yeah, so if you go to our website, it's just georgiaarchives.org.
Right.
And at the top, there's a couple of links, one of them being the find me aids.
Okay.
You can search there through maps. Then you also might be able to find some on that book and manuscript catalog. Okay, it's linked there too. And like I said, the virtual vault will have some, that'll be anything that's digitized in the virtual vault. Okay. So you may find some maps there, but not nearly all of our collection. I'd say really only about 5% of our collection has been digitized altogether.
It's about the same for us. We
Yeah.
have probably 5% digitized.
Yeah. Out of like how big is
Yeah.
Yeah, huge.
I once counted it up and we think we have in Columbus, I'm sure y'all are quadruple our holdings here, but we figure we have about 5,000 cubic feet of material. And we know on average, you can put 25 folders in a box, and on average, 25 pieces of paper in one folder. So 25 times 25 times 5,000 is literally almost 2 million pieces of paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just looking here. The one thing I don't think I mentioned about the Sanborn maps is you see these all say D, and that simply means dwelling. That verifies that these are individual residences and not businesses.
So his home was basically on the same street as the pharmacy.
It was just a couple of blocks down.
Yeah. I was just thinking to myself, it'd be a nice walk to work. Is the pharmacy still there? The building?
I don't think so. You know, in my research, I have not tried to go find that. I feel kind of embarrassed now that I haven't driven by there to look at how it looks now. I live so much in the papers. Sometimes it's a good reminder to get out there and look at it in person.
Spend some time in jail for the charges.
Not that I saw. I think he got fined and he got his hand slapped, but he was never, yeah.
Could have been the only doctor in town. You didn't like.
Yeah.
You said it's 2900 Second Avenue, right?
I believe so, yeah.
It looks like it's still there. It's a dilapidated building, but it looks like
Wow.
it's still there.
I guess I know what I'm doing when I get back to Columbus.
Street view. You just Google the address and you get the street.
Yeah, I know about it.
But then, so he had a lot of stuff around.
Yeah.
See, it looks like it's on a corner now. I think
Yeah.
there's a street next to the building now, assuming I have the right address.
This, I think, is the 2900 location. It would have been on the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
It looks like it's a mechanic, like an auto mechanic or some kind of car. repair, you know?
That's probably not the original building he would have had. Bet.
It looks pretty old.
That would be in the property records, right? You could trace who.
But I don't know what you can get online. You probably can't go that far back online. You can probably only go to the 90s online.
Depends, certain areas you can go back.
Yeah, maybe.
The Columbus Probate Court has really good records, but they're moving them right now as we speak. The Government Center in Columbus is getting renovated. I don't know when the probate court records will be open again, but that would be another good way to go through some of those old deed records.
Are they on Family Search?
I haven't checked on Family Search.
Some counties are, some counties are not.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I feel like we're all gonna be researching this
I
later.
know.
Yes. Yeah, this was a rabbit hole I went down one day at work. Well, y'all made me realize there's actually a whole lot more to the mystery.
Said all your
Yeah.
findings. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all. Yeah.